I got turning point vibes watching the Padres this past week.
Don't jinx it.
I got turning
do
point
that.
vibes, Derek.
Don't jinx it.
But if you go back like 2 episodes, I also said the same thing about the A's sweep, and that didn't quite turn out. But what a spirited week. Tough stretch of the schedule. Walk-offs. Had to show a little bit of fight. They got tested a little bit. And
fight quite
they
literally.
answered the call. Yeah, like quite literally. Some good signs from a lot of guys, but mixed in some discouraging injury news. Some promising injury updates as well. So sort of a mixed bag, and that's kind of been the story of the Padres 2024 season. Hopefully treading in the right direction, but we will discuss, could this be a springboard of sorts for the team? He's Derek Togerson. I'm Darnay Tripp. This is the On Fire podcast. How does this Thursday afternoon find you, Derek?
No stress reactions, which is good. Never had one of those.
You took away my favorite bit. There it is. There has Derek Togerson had this injury, and there you have your answer.
Oh shoot, we were talking about that before we went on. That's my bad.
There's probably others.
No, Derek's never had a stress reaction. Thank goodness. That's not fun. He's gonna be out for a long time. So now I have people in the newsroom asking if the Padres are going to trade for Tommy Pham, which is really one of the only possible ways to make Tatis's injury worse, as it means we end up with Tommy Pham back in the Padres clubhouse.
So it would have been good to have
talk about today, Darnay.
I would have liked to have had Tommy Pham on Tuesday.
Oh, dude, you want to talk about escalating a situation to the point of no return?
When things got spicy, I'd take Tommy Pham on my side.
Yeah, because he fights people off the field. He fights everywhere. Yeah. Tommy Pham apparently fights in the grocery store line.
That's why he trains. He Muay Thai and MMA, whatever, during the off season. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready.
Maybe some Aikido, maybe some Rochambeau. He does everything.
Do you think Keibert Ruiz would step to Tommy Pham the way he stepped to Jurickson Profar?
Yes. If Pham had done the exact same thing, yes, he would have. Now, he would have gotten a very different reaction than what Profar gave him. But he probably would have done it. Yeah. Should we go ahead and just jump into this? Because I'm sure we have some
no.
We on the Profar thing.
We will. We'll have plenty of time to do it. Let's get some business out of the way. And of course, that is OG's the sponsor of the On Fire podcast. Thanks to OG's and all they do. I was just talking to our folks upstairs that help out with the OG's deal. We might have some exciting stuff coming down the pipe, so to speak. So little tease ahead. But we appreciate OG's and all they do for the On Fire podcast. Great place to watch a game. Tons of TVs, soccer galore, Copa, Euros. Got the Wave playing at home on Friday. Padres on the road, so a good chance to get some Padres games at OG's, whatever your sport of choice. OG's is a great place to watch it, and an awesome menu. Enjoyed their pizzas when we were out there, and they are constantly updating their menus. So there's always fun stuff to check out when you go to OG's, and awesome beer lists, which I certainly appreciate. So thanks to OG's and all they do for the On Fire podcast and the NBC7 Sports Wrap team. And since Derek is chomping at the bit, without further ado, let's get to the walk-up music. We start with some breaking news, Derek Togerson. We're about to get the largest eye roll in the history of the On Fire podcast from Derek Togerson, and I'm threatening to derail the pod. But according to Chris Haynes, Los Angeles Lakers are drafting Bronny James with a number 55 pick in the 2024 NBA draft.
Okay, so the least worst kept secret in the history of the world. It's coming.
Who could have possibly seen this coming? Yes. Okay. All right. Now that's
what I did kind of selfishly just for the circus of it all. I would have loved to have seen, because LeBron still is he can be a free agent here. Like, he doesn't have a contract with the Lakers. I would have loved to have seen somebody else like draft Bronny and then basically like hold him ransom. Be like, hey, LeBron, we got your kid. You got to come over here and play with us, and you can play. How badly do you want to play with him? Really, like that would have been hysterical.
Yeah. I saw somebody say the Celtics should do that and force a trade for Austin Reeves. But we're not going to go. We're not going to go down that path, fortunately, and we'll see what happens there. Anyways, we have much more important business to discuss here on the On Fire podcast. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. Pleased to be with you on a Thursday off day after a very, very successful homestand. Now going to the East Coast first, Boston Red Sox, then heading west to face the Rangers. So we'll see if the good vibes continue on the road. Things have kind of flipped. Like they were good on the road, not so good at home. Then they swept the A's, and then suddenly we're bad on the road. Now they're really good at home. So go figure. But there's a lot to discuss, and you were ready to jump out the cage like a bull on something. I think
like the conversation was leading this way.
Was it Profar? Was it Profar you were just ready to?
Yeah, it's that's kind of the big thing that happened this weekend.
Sort of significant.
Yeah. So walk me through what was your take as you're watching all this unfold?
Well, from Monday into Tuesday, I thought I guess if we're going to have the what's appropriate, what's fair discussion, unwritten rules, all these things, what you can get away with and all that. What I saw was Jurickson Profar obviously really, really excited. And, it looked like he was talking to the crowd. I'm sure he knew where he was in proximity to the Nats dugout, but there were Nats players walking by and Jurickson wasn't saying anything to those guys. You know what I mean? It didn't look too direct towards them. Big moment. Guys had an awesome season. You're at home, whatever. And it's coming off of them, intentionally walking Luis Ariz to get to him. I get it. What happened on Tuesday with Ruiz feeling the need to say something, it's like, I don't know if we need to do all that. And also Manny Machado stepping in and trying to play the peacemaker. And then Ruiz falls back. And then everybody comes out and it kind of makes it look like it's more than what it really was. It kind of got blown out of proportion. And then Gore hits Profar and all that. Didn't look intentional. Mike Shildt didn't think it was intentional, but you got to toss him after a warning. So it was
intentional. Absolutely. Can we go in right now and give Mackenzie Gore an honorary Oscar for the I almost bought it. His turn. I can't believe I did that. The look on his face was so, that was Tom Hanks level acting, what he was able to pull off, because that was also, by the way, the fastest fastball that he threw at 98 miles an hour. There was purpose behind that pitch. Did he miss anywhere else at any other time the entire start? No.
Yeah.
No, there was absolute purpose behind that pitch. And by the way, Pro had it coming. So it was going to happen. Everyone knew it was going to happen. Ruiz just ramped it up a little bit by saying whatever he said, by losing his cool right before it all happened. And yes, Profar was looking directly at the Nationals dugout. He was talking directly to the Nationals players because he felt, as he said himself, disrespected. They decided to not pitch to a two-time reigning batting champion and go after him. I mean, Dave Martinez even asked afterwards, dude, pick your poison. What do you want? You got a two-time batting champ who's hot, and by the way, great with runners in scoring position, or you got this guy who's going to the All-Star game who has been great in pretty much every other situation. There's a no-win situation there. So the smart move is, put it out on every base. Go whatever you can. You knock one down, toss to first base, whatever. You got to force everywhere now. It's the smart move. But if Profar wants to find some motivation in that, great. But you then cannot go directly in the lineage of baseball. You cannot go in NFL. This would be a taunting penalty. You go directly in their faces or doing what you're doing, acting like you're doing it to the people above the dugouts. No, you're not. You're trying to spin it afterwards. Just own it. And it's I was pissed off at him. And so I went ahead and said, you know what? I'm going to get right in your face. He's going to wear one the next day and we all move on with our lives. And then Ruiz had to go and escalate it to an awesome point.
It's not that simple, though, because if he wears one, then the other guy's got to wear one. And we get into this stupid cycle. I mean, that's the part of it I don't like.
Well, not necessarily, because that's retribution. It's over at that point. He did something wrong. He gets his payback. We're done. Now, if two guys get hit,
I don't think it'd be that simple.
The cycle.
I don't think it's that simple. I don't think the Padres see Profar get one in the ribs and like, okay, that's fair. Let's go on. Like, that's not going to happen. It's going to escalate. It will always escalate. And I just feel like, look, he wasn't flipping anybody off. He wasn't getting up in anybody's face. He didn't shove anybody around. I get what you say about like the NFL taunting penalty. Like, there's penalties in position for this sort of thing. But like I guess I just don't care if somebody celebrates. Like, it's an emotional moment. Things happen. If you're the Nats, if you want retribution, the next day hit back-to-back homers and pound your chest around the wink at the pitcher. I don't care what you do. Like,
which is what Jesse Winker did.
Do what Jesse Winker did.
All that stuff.
Just do that stuff. I'm fine with all that extra stuff as long as it's when it turns into like Ruiz doing what he did, Gore throwing at Profar intentionally or not. Like, that's to me where it gets kind of like in other sports, in football, in basketball, you have guys pounding their chests. You have guys yapping, getting each other's faces, that sort of thing. Nobody's throwing a basketball at somebody's head afterwards. You know what I mean?
Hockey, they drop the gloves, they get after each other, and they both go in the penalty box for 5 minutes, and everyone moves on. That seems to be okay for everybody.
That seems to be okay for everybody. That's a very specific thing to the sport of hockey.
And this is a very specific thing to the sport of baseball. You tick somebody off by showing them up. Those are the key words. Showing them up, you're going to wear one. That's the old. Does it make sense? No, it's never made sense. You know, if you're defending one of your players, something somebody else did, that's one thing. If you're just ticked off because somebody showed you up, that shouldn't be the case. But it's been part of baseball for 100 years. You know, it's just the way it is. Now, should it be gone from the game? Yes. But this is the world we live in. We shouldn't have bad things happen, but they do happen. This shouldn't be part of baseball, but it is. And if you play the game, you have to understand the rules you're playing with, written or otherwise.
I think we see it a little bit differently. How did that message, and Davey Martinez said it afterwards, like, you know, we felt like we needed to send a message. What did that really do for your team? That didn't turn. I mean, I guess, but it inspired Manny Machado immediately. It obviously inspired Jurickson Profar. You're putting a young pitcher in kind of a tough spot as well. I just like, what was the purpose of it? Did you really accomplish anything by doing this and shifting the focus from like, okay, let's not worry about all that stuff. Let's worry about like shoving. Let's worry about giving it right back to them instead of, you know,
that's where you don't see the big picture, Darnay. In one game, no, it didn't do anything for you. But what it did was it sets the tone in the clubhouse that we don't tolerate people showing us up. We don't tolerate people doing that to our ball club. So what it does is, even if it doesn't work that day and it backfires on you, fine. That's a one-time instance. What it does, it tells all those 26 dudes in that clubhouse that we're going to defend you. We're going to have your back. We're going to not take this kind of crap lying down. That's the tone it sets for the remainder of the season, which can be very beneficial for a young ball club that's been playing over its skis for most of the season.
And I could see that from like Ruiz saying something, you know, I could see that like right off the bat, you know, delivering some sort of message. It probably could have stopped there. Again, maybe I'm being a bit naive.
Well, that's where Gore was following the script. He was like, it didn't matter what happened led up to that. Mac was following the script they had already laid out. And so maybe they had to have a mound visit after that to be like, okay, we've done our piece, call off the hit batter. They could have done that. He was going this day. I got my marching orders, dude. I'm doing it.
Yeah. I just think if I'm another team, I'm like, okay, you can act tough, but last time you did this, you got whooped. So I'm not really worried about you.
But you also know if you do that, you know now beyond the shadow of a doubt, the Nationals organizational edict is drill that dude. So if you don't want to wear one, you're not going to be doing that. It sets a precedent for the entire season,
I guess.
And guys don't like being hit by fastballs. Does not feel pleasant.
No,
you know, I've done that. It doesn't feel good. So if you know, hey man, just listen, celebrate as much as you want. I'll say this. If the Nationals had done that and Profar was literally just with his guys and talking to the fans over his dugout and they did this, they'd be completely in the wrong. But I understand I'm getting it because of how things have been in baseball for 100 years.
a lot of things are one way for a long period of time, and it doesn't necessarily mean, okay, maybe it's time to change things up a little bit.
Oh no, they should. And I was thinking they should do that, but that's not the world we live in right now. The world we live in is this still exists. And until Rob Manfred or somebody wants to outlaw the whole thing and then put you on a 30-game suspension if you do it, that's what's going to get rid of it. But right now it exists, and that's what you need to do with it.
I don't want that to overshadow too much of the, not to say that, I mean, some people might see the way things transpired as a good thing, but like the other just positive things that happened on the field, because I think that's the larger story. I do think, we've talked about it a little bit earlier, the team showing the willingness. You talk about messages, like they also, I think, delivered a message in their own sense, standing up for Profar, during that dust up, and then immediately afterwards showing more fight than last year's team showed. Like, I think last year's team probably doesn't respond as emphatically as this year's group did.
Oh, no question.
So I think that's a really positive. But I think, when the dust settles, you have a team that was tested in numerous ways. Again, more close games, more good first place playoff contending type teams. We spoke last week after kind of the Phillies series went south, and they did get the finale of that one, and this being an important stretch, seeing them two first place teams and that's team that was right behind, and you come out of this stretch 7-1 and 7-3, after starting 3-0 or 0-3. Do I have that right? 6-4, maybe. That's how many. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, 7-3.
So 6-1 on the homestand, and they lost
7-3.
7-3 in the last 10.
Yeah. So I'm sorry if they lose their first two to the Phillies, and then So I mean, I think they were 3 games below 500. They're now 3 games above 500. They had a host of teams right behind them, including the Nats. Now you have, it's again really, really early, but if you look at the wild card standings, it's not quite as like super, super wide open. The Nats are now 3.5 behind. And so they come out of this on, better footing, better vibes, a lot to feel good about just based on what we've seen after a really tough beginning to this stretch of series against quality teams.
You are correct. Was there a question there? Was there
nothing else to add? I mean,
no, you're absolutely right. That's accurate. They're much better off now than they were a week ago. The 6-1 homestand will do that for you. And as we said, they now own the season series over the Brewers. They own the season series over the Cubs, and they're up one more game against the Nationals, and they own the season series against the Nationals. And that means a lot when you're talking about potential playoff tiebreakers, because you don't play that game 163 anymore. We had too many wild card rounds. So they won the games that they needed to win in the order in which they needed to win them. So it's been a really, really good recent stretch.
I was a little bit like, they come off of May, have a good month of May, and then kind of trip of their own feet, to start June. And I think they started 5-11. They're now 12-12 in the month of June. You look like after May, June would kind of, wipe away all the goodwill they did in that month. And all of a sudden you're kind of, you're in better position there. Do you think that, and this is kind of the question I wanted to pose off the top, is there reason to believe, do you see anything that makes you think, okay, this team might be kind of figuring it out?
Yes. And I say that because they are winning and they're beating pretty good clubs without Yu Darvish, without Joe Musgrove, without Xander Bogaerts. Manny's figuring it out. They have had to rely on, Adam Mazur, and Matt Waldron has really become a thing. And their bullpen has been shaky as always. It's just getting the ball to Robert Suarez. It continues to be a problem. And yet they're finding out ways to win games. Jake Cronenworth gets hot for a little while and carries the offense. And then Manny gets hot for a while and carries the offense. Profar doesn't look like he's going to slow down anytime soon, which is awesome. Jackson Merrill why is Jackson Merrill not getting all-star run? I mean, look at his numbers. He's right there among the best outfielders in the National League right now. So it's like, he looks like he is not going to be going anywhere. In fact, if anything, the power has finally shown up. So it's what they've been able to do when they have not been firing on all cylinders or had all of their guys playing well at one time. has been phenomenal. So you have to figure everybody's going to get going at some point. Bogaerts gets back. Ha-seong Kim learns how to throw the ball straight to first base. You got these guys playing in a way that they can continue producing at the level we thought they would produce. And then you're going to be a really good ball club, which is why I say they should be buyers at the trade deadline, because you buy and you stem the tide now. Well, guess what? You hang on to those guys. What's up, Eric? You hang on to those guys as you move forward and you get your all-stars back. Now you got even a more complete team with fewer holes on it. So this has the potential to be really, really positive moving into October for the Padres.
Fangraphs WAR leaderboard, National League outfielders: Jurickson Profar #1, Fernando Tatis Jr. #2, Brandon Nimmo #3, Jackson Merrill #4, Teoscar Hernandez #5.
Yep.
So there you go.
Pretty good.
He deserves.
Merrill has handled center field beautifully.
Yeah,
I mean, beautifully.
I didn't get a chance to really get a good look at this week's All-Star ballot update.
It comes out in 5 minutes.
Does it come out in 5?
Yeah, I thought there was one Eastern time. It's 3:26 right now. The clock just changed.
Oh, that's right. I'm thinking of there was the one from Monday. Jackson Merrill way down there in terms of the outfielders, but Jurickson Profar in position to be the top vote getter in the outfield. And at this point, you should just give him that starting spot in left field. You know, it is what it is at this point. He's had an incredible season. Like you said, he's shown no signs of slowing down. He's had big moments, walk-offs. He's got the grand slam. He's doing everything for this team. He's been their heartbeat, leadership, like all that stuff. He's played up pretty good and at points a good left field defensively. I mean, that's not necessarily his strong suit, but I think he's played just fine out there. Certainly hasn't hurt the team, but what he's done for you offensively, and I just love the story of it. I was really worried when the knee started flaring up. I was like, man, how devastating would it be if that interfered with his All-Star campaign? But now we're at this point where he looks like, and we'll see what happens when the ballot comes out, but a virtual lock to be a starter in the outfield. He deserves it. It's an awesome story, and he just continues to be productive and clutch for this team, and it's been just a wonderful thing to behold.
Now, what do you think the difference is this year?
For Jurickson?
For Jurickson Profar. And I asked this because I actually asked him what the difference is this year. And it's something I would have never thought of.
I mean, I know, like, I asked him early in the season, and he just said he loves playing here. It feels like home. That was his answer, like, in late April, maybe early May. Now, is it that simple? I don't know. You know, he's been here before, and he hasn't necessarily played at an all-star level. He's been good, but he's been like a good bench-type player, maybe a little bit beyond that. But since he got back in September, he's been really, really good. And this year, we've just seen another gear.
He does love playing here for sure. But he told me he learned something from last year. When he got here, it's about competitive plate appearances. And what he means by that is he used to, I mean, the talent's always been there, right? He was the #1 overall prospect in baseball. That moniker doesn't go to just any slug. The guy's talented. What he learned last year was you get 600 something plate appearances, and he used to pace himself. You know, like it's a long baseball season, 162 games. You got to go, pace yourself. So, but what he learned about himself, and I'm asking because we just saw it this week when he's challenged and he's locked in, be it Will Smith or Kyber Ruiz or an insert name here, the man responds because he's now motivated. He's now locked in. So what he told me is he wants to take competitive at-bats the entire season. So what he's reminded himself of is don't give an at-bat away. You don't have to pace yourself. Every single time you step to the plate, this is a competitive at-bat. And now that he's reminded himself of that and he's taken on that mindset, the top prospect overall in baseball that he was, that guy is now here. It just took him 12 years for him to finally show up. And sometimes guys need to get hit over the tube and head by a 2x4. I know I'm that way sometimes, to really learn something and apply it every single day. So that's the difference in Jurickson Profar this year. He is now saying, I'm not giving away a single at-bat. I go up there. I'm making this a competitive plate appearance every single time I go because I've given away too many in my career, and I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and that's shown itself. And I think I think he was a guy that typically gave you professional at bats, in his previous stints here. But yeah, I mean, you can tell it's gone to another level this season, and there's the productivity to match. And I think, and you also touched on something like when he is challenged, he answers and he plays with a chip. And you know, I could get people saying, well, like, of course they walk Luis Ariz to get to you, but like, what do we say about elite athletes all the time? Like any sort of slight, they're going to use that as fuel to help them perform at the highest level.
Brady,
they're going,
Michael Jordan, yeah.
The list goes on, and Jurickson Profar does that as well. So if you slight him, disrespect him in any manner, you wouldn't want an athlete to be like, you know what? I could see the logic in that. That's probably smart, walking Luis Ariz to get to me. It's like, okay, that's not the attitude you want. You want somebody that's going to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to make you pay. And he did just that. And
but stop it there.
He celebrated heartily, and I don't blame him for that. And, he didn't shove any of the Nats players when they were coming off the field. He was just hyping up the crowd, good, innocent fun. And I I support that.
Hey, Lauren, what's going on, man? Always with us. The good friend of the show. Lauren Casuto said, always good to see you guys on the air. Welcome 200 turning point in half a season for the Padres, but I'll never get tired of Profar owning teams that deserve it. And there you go. That's the point. Owning teams that deserve it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and he's right. We've been, and I think especially if you go back to last season, we were constantly looking for a turning point. And there's a chance that this week ends up being just that. It's just another week in a long season. And, we'll find out pretty soon when they go to Boston and then obviously Texas. But yeah, I just think it feels like the type of week where like everything that transpired, the dust up, walk-offs, big moments, back-to-back games with grand slams, unsung heroes. We got to talk about Kyle Higashioka.
How great has he been?
It's the type of stuff that I feel like galvanizes the team. And again, it's just never like they tried to artificially do that last year with like sombrero and piñata and some of the stuff that like teams do all over baseball. It's fun. But there was not necessarily this kind of organic, togetherness that seems to be developing with this club and developing, through the crucible of a season and hard games and all that. And so I'm encouraged by that, but time will tell. Let's talk about Kyle Higashioka. 1 home run before this month, 7 of them now. Or is it? No, it's 7 this month, 8 of them now.
Two home run games in that span.
2 home run games in that span, a walk-off, now his first career walk-off, first career grand slam. Out of curiosity, and I was looking at his baseball reference page late last month when he was, he wasn't giving them very productive at-bats. He wasn't really offering a whole lot when he was playing for Luis Campusano. And I was like, shoot, this guy was a 20 home run per 162 hitter for the Yankees. So it's in there somewhere. And his career home run rate was like 4.5, somewhere in the neighborhood of Manny Machado's. Now, granted, far fewer at bats. Now, this season, his home run rate is 8.3. Fernando Tatis Jr.'s from 2021 was 7.7. Yeah. Now, obviously, the volume isn't going to be there because the at-bats aren't there, and you don't necessarily expect that to continue over those number of at-bats. But we've seen what's in that bat, and I think Shildt, Higgy, Machado have all referenced, like, he must have been the league leader in foul ball home runs, which I don't know if I picked up on as the season went on. But that was kind of a trend for him. It's like, these balls are leaving the yard. He just got to straighten them out, and he straightened them out.
Right.
And now you see what he's capable of.
Well, obviously the Padres won the Juan Soto trade. I mean, it's
pretty clear. Juan Soto has 4 home runs. Right, Juan Soto has 4 home runs this month, and Kyle Higashioka has 7. That tells you all you need to know.
Precisely. And by the way, Juan Soto's got a little more help around him in the lineup.
Yeah. And Kyle Higashioka is cheaper.
Soto did miss some time with an injury. Yes. But Kyle Higashioka doesn't play every day. My question is, even when Campy gets back, is Kyle Higashioka your everyday catcher? He's never really been that. He's never really done it over a full season. He'd never really had a chance, ever really earned that. But if this is the current iteration of Kyle Higashioka, can you take him out of the lineup? Like, can you, with good conscience, not put this guy in when he's swinging the bat the way he is? And obviously, everyone loves throwing to him. And also, by the way, the caught stealing. He's been tremendous throwing out base runners. And the Padres pitching staff is not really known for holding runners all that well. He's been throwing out a lot of dudes. Now, the staff is doing a better job by and large, but he's been really, really good throwing runners out. Like, it's not the strongest arm, but damn it, it's out fast.
Well, they were awful last year. They were useless in that respect.
Oh, terrible.
And that's not been the case this year. And Campusano, I think, was better defensively, better with his framing, that sort of thing early in the season. It seems like maybe some of that is kind of tailed off a little bit. And so when you factor in kind of what he does for you defensively, Campy went through a rough stretch, kind of showed some life again. I think, look, the nature of the catcher position is, it's not going to be one guy 7 games a week necessarily. And so
there's no chance.
So it allows you to have a 4-3 split or a 5-2 split or whatever it is. And yeah, I mean, Shildt kind of referenced that on Wednesday after the game, is like, yeah, we've started to kind of get him in there a little bit more often. And now that Campusano's down, we're getting a chance to see him more often. And so I think that's certainly a fair question and something that they should consider. Again, it's not going to be 6-7 days a week, but if the split is more 50-50 or slightly in the favor of, or maybe not even slightly, but in the favor of Kyle Higashioka, I think you have to consider that at this point. And heck, maybe even, I think, I want to say, was it the walk-off? There was some pinch hit situation. It's like, it's got to a point where like you would consider bringing Kyle Higashioka to the plate as a substitute pinch hit, whatever, because of what he's done for you, because he might run into one, because he's been doing that. And you could have never imagined saying that a month ago.
No, yeah. Then the only issue is, do you want to have your backup catcher one and done in the game? Because then you got to, if something, God forbid, happens to the guy who's out there, Brett Sullivan in this case, you got nobody to go to. Who is the Padres emergency catcher anyway? I don't even know.
It might be Cronenworth.
I think they were also working. Who else are they working out? Oh, Ward.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. As the emergency catcher. But I mean, and again, Jake can do literally anything. We've talked about that before. Do you want to subject him to that? Probably not. Oh, yeah. It's like, that'd be like having, Travis Kelce as your emergency long snapper. Like, you probably don't want to put him in that position because he does too much other stuff for you.
Yep.
But what do you do? Yeah, Taylor Ward, I think, was the guy they were working out.
Yeah. And so last year they got nothing from anybody outside of the main guys, and the main guys weren't giving you nearly enough. And that's been one of the great storylines this season. And I think, when Profar got off to his start, it's like, oh, okay, is this going to last? Well, yeah, it's going to last. He'll be an all-star starter. Jackson Merrill, okay, there's going to be some highs and lows. There really haven't been dramatic lows. And Jake Cronenworth has looked like Jake Cronenworth again, and now Kyle Higashioka. And so to have another guy when Fernando Tatis Jr. is now hurt, and you're not getting the Xander Bogaerts you expected to get, and the list goes on, when Luis Campusano goes through his struggles, have more guys to fill those gaps. And like the bottom 3 hasn't been as dreadful as it was last year. You don't get to 7, 8, 9 and think, okay, well, they're not going to do anything. Let's fast
Jackson
forward to the next
inning. By the way, it's Tyler Wade. God, Wade, I was thinking about, we're going to talk about trading for Tyler Ward from the Angels. So Tyler Wade is who they're talking about, the emergency catcher. That is my bad. I apologize to all parties.
Yeah. So, anyways, Higgy's been a great addition from that standpoint, and to see the power that, like, again, the numbers with the Yankees seem to indicate that was in there, and it's great to see that it's around and what he's capable of at the plate, on top of what he can do defensively. I was looking at their numbers from the last 8 games. As a team, hitting .291, 837 OPS. Let's see, 5 strikeouts a game. 6.6 runs a game, 10 plus hits a game, almost 2 homers a game. So it's been a nice little burst that they've had here, and hopefully they can keep it going. And obviously Higgy's a big part of that.
Yeah. Now, aside from Ranger Suarez, and you could probably say Mackenzie Gore, it hasn't been against great pitching. I mean, the Brewers' starting rotation is just in shambles right now. They have some pretty decent arms. But that means that they're doing what they're supposed to do against guys who are not great arms, and that score a lot of runs, hit the ball well. So whereas we know in the very recent past, that's not what the Padres would do. They would some rookie with an 8.15 ERA in AAA would come in and lock them down for 7 innings. Like
Patrick Corbin did do that. Now he's a lefty, but he's been a bad lefty. But like he's
a veteran who does have something resembling a track record, who can be good in times.
But they've had some success against lefties, whether it be Gore, whether it be Suarez, which I think is worth noting, because that was, you go back a week or two, you're like, okay, if they face a string of lefties, are they going to be able to get anything done? And now you can say, okay, yeah, there might be a little bit of hope. Jackson Merrill's part of that. We've talked about him getting more experience, and so he's done some damage there as well. And so there's like one storyline on top of like these random guys that shove that like maybe isn't as prominent this year or during the stretch.
Yeah, who was it they started? They just did a series not too long ago. It was not Miami. Yeah, Miami. Every starter was a lefty.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and they took 2 out of 3 from him. But again, those are Miami lefties, and Luzardo obviously was not the same guy. And they won 2 out of 3 of those, and the other one they lost was when Darvish was basically on one leg and probably dealing with some elbow stuff we didn't even know about at the time. So he just got beat up that game.
Yeah, I was going to mention as well. I mean, there's lots of injury stuff that we can get into. Manny Machado's looking like Manny Machado again. Like we're not, a couple homers here and there. It's still not at his usual kind of 30 home run run rate. But over his last 35 games, which is now like a month and a week, 325 average, 833 OPS against slug 460. You expect Manny to, provide a little bit more from that standpoint, but 3 homers during that stretch, 17 ribbies. And if this is the Manny Machado that you can rely on, more or less week in, week out, month in, month out, again, you'd like a few more homers mixed in, but it's certainly not going to hurt you. And it almost reminds me at points of like the 2022 version where like he got to his 30 home runs, but there were stretches of the season where it's just like death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's just kind of relentless. You know what I mean? Like when other guys weren't doing much, at least Manny's going to get a single, get a double here or there. He'll get a homer on occasion. I think this team is Xander Bogaerts was that for the first month of last season, just missing that like super consistent. Obviously, Jurickson Profar has been that guy. Luis Arraez thought we'd be that guy. It's been solid, but maybe not as kind of
since that slide, he hasn't been the same guy.
Not as relentless. If you got Manny, who's given you multi-hit game, singles, doubles, even, you can't be mad at that guy. It's not necessarily like, you could argue whether or not it's a 300 million, 30 plus per year type franchise pillar. Like you want that 2022 version, the guy that we saw that was an MVP candidate in 20 and in a short season as well. But you're not looking at him like, well, what are we doing? Why is he on the field? Because those are real things people are saying, like, this guy's hurt, he's not doing anything for us, why is he playing? It's like, well, I mean, this is why he's playing. It was going to come around at some point, but he's been through a lot with the elbow getting right and then the hip, and it seems like he's getting to a really good place.
Well, I asked him, like we talked about last week, how he changed his batting stance, moved his hands up a little bit and flattened his bat out. And I said, does that have to do with anything with the elbow? And it's like, it just makes my swing feel better. So he was not going to cop to being hurt at all, but read between the lines there. It is, he wasn't able to do the same things he was doing. So he changed up and he's now putting the bat on the ball. It coincides with hitting 325 over a 6-week period. I'll take that from anybody. 325. I mean, come on, he's getting on base. He's helping move the lineup along. And what's great is right now you don't need the power numbers from him. You can if he loses one every now and again, fantastic. But there's enough thunder up and down this lineup right now that you can get by without him doing typical 30 home run Manny Machado type things, which is great. And if that power does tend to come along in the second half of the season because the elbow does make a turn or whatever it is, then great. That even better. But he's also going to be putting the ball in play and hitting the ball in places where other guys can't get to it, which means that he is turning the lineup over. He is handing the baton to the next guy, which is Jake Cronenworth or Jackson Merrill or occasionally Ha-seong Kim or whoever. Insert name here of guys who are making this lineup really, really long. Maybe it's not going to be the one that's hitting, 200 home runs in a season, but it's going to hit you 5,000 singles, and singles keep everything going.
He's 18 bombs away from the franchise record.
Yeah.
Any chance he gets it this year?
Yeah. He gets 18 in
6-7 homer seasons are like,
games.
Yeah. So, I mean, July, August, September.
Let's do the math.
6 homers a month. It's not.
So they are at, what's their 43 and 40, right? It's 83 games.
43 and 40, yeah. Or is it 44
and 41? So they have 79 games left. 79 divided by 18.
This is my favorite part of the pod, is when Derek starts doing long division.
4.3. He needs basically one every 4 games.
Yeah.
Which he's capable of that. That turns into one every 16 at-bats.
Look at his what was that? I mean, and he's had 11 homer months for the Padres. Do I necessarily think that's going to happen this season? Who knows? What did he do? He had a really big let's see, last year, even in what was a down season, I think June or July, was one of his. He had 11 homers in
Fernando,
July.
Math is hard. That's why we're journalists. Sure words were never spoken.
So he had 11 homer month last July, so he basically,
July's coming up soon.
So
and July's when the All-Star game is. You lose them basically 4 days right in the middle there.
Yeah, that's true.
And the other thing is too is the schedule now lightens up for them a ton. They get a bunch of days off. So that means don't have to worry about the fatigue on a 13-day stretch. You can start, you maybe get a little bit more rest in there, maybe let it heal a little bit more. So if the question is, can he get to the franchise record, beat Nate Colbert this year? Absolutely he can. Will he? You know what? I'll be optimistic, Derek, and say yes.
He had 9 homers through June of last season, and then 21 over the last 3 months of the year. Now 11 in July, 5 in August, 5 in September. So there you go. It's very much within the realm of possibility, and we've seen him go on these tears. And there was a point in the year when he's like 23, 22 away, and you're like, I don't know if he's going to get there this year at this rate. But now that things are clicking for him, some of those doubles, some of those hard hit balls are probably going to sail over the fence. That one he hit after Gore plunked Profar was just a mammoth blast.
But he was hunting fast. He was ready to ambush a fastball.
Let's talk about there's lots of injury things to talk about last few minutes. We obviously know about Fernando Tatis Jr. stress reaction in the femur. Not the quad. It's a bone issue instead of a muscular issue. Xander Bogaerts was in the cage Wednesday. So he's taking hacks again. Shildt said he's been taking more grounders. So, obviously an upper body injury, but you're reaching, you're doing all these other things.
Seen him out pregame doing that for a little bit now.
Yu Darvish bumped because of Tuesday elbow inflammation. Going to be throwing soon, it sounds like. And then Joe Musgrove starting kind of a slow projection, throwing objects of some sort to try and get to a good place. Of these updates, what most piques your interest? I think Nando's kind of the obvious one because of like, okay, when do we see him? I mean, that's like,
I don't know.
These are murky.
September might be the case for him because A stress reaction is when you're putting too much of a biomechanical load from the muscle onto the bone. So this is a bone issue, and the femur is the largest bone in the body. So it's like, this is bad. There's no easy fix for this. I don't know how long it's gonna. He lost 80 games his rookie year because of a stress reaction in his back.
Yeah.
So this is not bueno.
Now everything back related, it seems more serious, more severe, and harder to get through than a limb, right?
Yeah, well, it's also here that what I don't know from a medical standpoint is vertebrae are a lot smaller. Is it worse if it's on a smaller muscle, a smaller bone versus a larger bone?
Right.
Is it the nature of the muscle, what type it is? That I don't know. All I do know is this is the kind of thing that happens a lot of times because muscles get too strong for the bone to handle in explosive athletes. And we can all speculate on why exactly that might be in a guy like Fernando Tatis Jr., who has been suspended for things. So this could be something that is coming back to haunt him now. We don't know. But that's the one who I think we need to address the rest of the season as. If he comes back, it's a bonus. Because I don't know if he's going to be back at all for this year.
Yeah.
So, like I say, Tyler Ward starts to look pretty good. Randy Arozarena starts to look pretty good. Do not say Tommy Pham's name coming back here. You don't want to mess up the juju in the clubhouse. The clubhouse is great. Clubhouse mix is fantastic. Don't bring that red ass back into the clubhouse. It's going to mess everything up, right? He's the anti-Profar. You got to find a way to fill that gap in the outfield. You know, they don't have a guy right now who can do it. So you have to find one somewhere else.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm ready to make the connection that you're making there. But it's, yeah.
Again, it's purely speculatory. But when you have someone who has been suspended, and this is a very common type of side effect, it gives me pause.
Yeah, I think like you look at the timing of it, you know, and we've talked about there being some like the messaging being a little bit different from Mike Shildt to the players. Like Mike Shildt in the dugout was like, we don't know. It could be before the All-Star break. It could be after the All-Star break. We don't really know. And then when you hear from Fernando after the game, he's like, no, this is like a serious thing that we're working through that we got to deal with. And there's going to be some time. And it's likely going to be, I mean, I think Fernando, I don't want to misquote him, was basically like after the All-Star break, it seems like the type of thing where let's get past the All-Star break, which is in less than a month now, and then see what kind of update we get. And if there's any reason to believe after the All-Star break, yes, it's progressing well. He has a chance to whatever the progression is, run, jump, whatever, and start kind of working his way back up. But it does feel like one of those situations where like you could probably get away with just shelving it for a few weeks, you know, at least in terms of like our mind, our curiosity, and then address it in a few weeks and see where he's at, because it doesn't seem like there's a reason to think that it's going to resolve itself any sooner than that, which is discouraging.
It was incredibly discouraging. Yeah, because he was starting to become himself again at the plate, which is, it stinks. It just stinks.
And it's got to be, I mean, you know, emotionally, whatever, you know, the causes of it, you know, hard for him because, you know, some of the things that have cost him time, injury, certainly not, but like the accident, the suspension, like that, you know, some of these are self-inflicted wounds, but, you know, still a young guy that loves to play. And it's like another thing that's the hamstring his rookie year, the back his rookie year, the shoulder, you know, the wrist and the suspension. It's like, man, like, can we get like a full season with this guy where there's nothing? Like he came back last year in April and was healthy, which is great. But he was in the process of kind of getting back to form. You know, I think myself, him, fans, everybody, you just long for like a 2-season stretch where there's just nothing but Fernando Tatis Jr. just playing baseball and being fun and being exciting. And, you know, when it's a quad and you're seeing him limp around, you're like, this is a bummer, you know, because it takes away from tagging up on fly balls to the shallow outfield and stealing home and these types of things because one of his wheels is busted. So it's good that, you know, from that standpoint, it's good that he's going to heal up and get it right. But it's just a drag that you're looking at another sustained stretch and you just don't know. Like, hopefully it's a month or two, but you just don't know. It's hard.
Yeah, the one we can probably bank on as being the most positive on a return is probably Bogaerts.
Seems that way.
Yeah, I think when you got a fracture from an impact, bam, you know what you're dealing with. It heals, you come back. So you got a pretty decent time frame. You know he's going to be all right. Musgrove probably being number 2 because you got a diagnosis, you got a bone spur. All right, you know what to deal with it now. Elbow inflammation, that's a little more of a gray area. And then what we just talked about with Tatis. So I'd say in the 4, which we can count on coming back and being something resembling themselves, it'd be Xander, Joe, you, Toddy.
The question is, who is Xander Bogaerts? Like, who is that player that he returns to, you know? Because if it's a Xander Bogaerts that we've seen for the most part, like, okay, great, he's back and he's healthy. If it's like first month, second month of last year's Xander Bogaerts, then that's massive. But I think that's kind of the lingering question is like, who is he returning to be?
I got to think it's that. I mean, maybe not all of that, like the first month and the last month. But I'm talking about the guy who hits 300 and hits you 5, 6, 7 home runs. That's the guy I believe Xander Bogaerts will come back to be. I think he's had time to reset mentally, physically. I'm no one being naive now, but I honestly think we're going to get a really good version of him coming back because he's lost so much time. I think the frustration is going to lock him in the same way that Profar has been locked in. I really believe he's going to come back and be a very impactful bat in this lineup.
Yeah, and if he's the guy that you lay out to be, that's like a 750 plus OPS type, that's pretty super useful, like on a lineup that already has contributors up and down, like you said, and in a race that is wide open and waiting for a team to just kind of take hold. Padres have taken some steps in doing that, but the addition of a guy like that would help. Yep. Off to Boston. I'm just going to get who gets more of a hero's welcome in Boston, Xander Bogaerts or Don Orsillo? I mean, Xander won 2 World Series with the club.
Had Bogaerts been traded and not really chosen to sign somewhere else, although I think the Red Sox fans probably know that Boston was going to give their money to Devers and not him, so I don't think they're going to hold that against him all that much. But Dono is just so low. Oh, God. It's a wash. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Hopefully they both get lots of hugs, lots of adulation, lots of cheers because they deserve it. Good guys, and clearly have a bond with that city. Red Sox, then Rangers. Off day, I believe, on Thursday, and we'll discuss whatever it is that transpires between now and then on the next edition of the On Fire podcast. Good chatting as always, Derek. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Catch you next week.